Hi, my name's Brett Ross. I'm from Brisbane, Australia. Currently, I live in Virginia, in the east coast of America, and I'm currently exhibiting a number of my photographic artworks as part of the Trade Winds exhibition here at the Art Institute of Washington. The photographs that I'm exhibiting come from different parts of the world that I've traveled to, including Japan, South America, Central America, the Caribbean islands, North America, Korea, etc. There's mostly my photographs focus on landscapes or scapes within these different areas of the world, either involving people, sometimes without people, focusing on a constructionist sort of view of the area, trying to put together a more designed approach to the way that you look at and view these different landscapes. A number of the photos, one in particular, is coming down when I was walking up and down Mount Fuji, coming down in the early morning with fog cover and cloud covered landscape across a lake area with the sky clear blue. It focuses on removing the actual structure of the landscape and trying to layer them, the different objects within the image as different components separate from the actual landscape itself, layered blues, layered whites, etc., focusing on that form and function of the components, not necessarily as part of a rolling field or a set of mountains. It's very much construction and object related. A lot of the photographs that I take look at the positioning of the different elements within the scene, whether I center it within the photograph, put it in key points within the frame, the rule of thirds, as a really basic sort of approach to identifying and focusing concentration on that particular part within the image. A lot of the elements that go into making a strong image, or the style of image that I like to take photographs of, try to remove any sort of real feeling towards the objects. They're just part of the scenery that allow you to look at the photo and become caught up in what you think the photograph is about. For example, it looks very much, it's got an animation, sort of Japanese animation sort of style and feel to it, that particular image, with the colors and the progression of the landscape. Generally, when I'm photographing, I just look at a really simple approach to looking at the surroundings and very much constructing what that surroundings or what those surroundings look like within the scene. Generally, I take very limited photographs in terms of that particular scene or what I'm trying to construct within that view. So maybe one or two images. I think that particular image, I only took one shot, a couple of different shots of different ways of explaining that landscape within my photographs. But this particular one, I think it was only one or two. I think a lot of my strength from the photographs come through from some of the varied landscapes and different places that I visit. To say that they're hit or miss isn't quite true. Basically, for me to take a photograph, I need to see that component that I'm taking a photograph, that particular style of my own that I like to represent a scene or a landscape. And that's when I take the photo. So hit or miss is only whether or not that photograph really expresses what I want to actually convey through the image. To think about the number of images that I've taken over my career, when I started way back when I was 15 in high school, that's when I first started doing my own printing and developing, moving on to sort of college level where I had some subjects. Thousands of images, 100,000 would be probably a good estimate in terms of total images across different subject matters, different commercial applications, jobs, etc. The majority of the images that I take look at capturing very specific different components. So in the old days with film, it would be 4 images per roll, having up to 8 images on a 32 roll. You'd be able to capture basically those different components across different areas. In some ways, I do feel that my images are snapshots. They're a capture of a specific moment or location that I'm taking these images, where I think moves beyond what is just a general snapshot that everybody loves to take on their own holidays, etc., is that I try to portray a particular scenario within that environment. If it's in Japan, it has a very Japanese feel about it, etc. A lot of it is constructing those components within the scene that I can manipulate just by moving subtly around, positioning in those different areas in the center or in high key points within the frame itself, that I take it from being just a simple snapshot of trying to remember that place or the time, emotion, and thoughts and feelings that go into that being in that place and time, to a really good capture of this is your view, or this is how you would see that when you're actually there in that time and place. It's taken in a gallery up in New York. The photo sort of looks at a capture of time for this couple sitting in a gallery, taking a moment to enjoy one of the exhibits, a rock garden, a Japanese rock garden within the actual gallery itself, and looks to sort of capture, by removing everything else, it really is just a photo of them enjoying this moment in time within the gallery. A lot of time that I've spent in different countries, a lot of it centers around Japan, those Asian countries, and a lot of the moments that you can see within the images are, while they might be a snapshot or a capture of a moment, there's time taken to actually stand there and watch this event taking place. And a lot of Japanese culture and a lot of the different rituals that they sort of embody are very slow and focused, and not necessarily rigid in terms of without beauty. They're rigid in terms of the structure and the way that things are produced and put together, and that obviously is reflected in a lot of the work that I do, because it's not necessarily the time that I take to create the image, it's that time that is captured within the image that's important. That particular image is taken from a boat within the Panama Canal when I was on a sailing trip from basically Trinidad, Tobago up through and to the other side of the Panama Canal. It's looking from a boat, looking at one of the lock gates that prevent the water to come in and allows the ships to move through the canal itself. And there's a image, or there's a component of a man walking across the very top of those locks, trying to get from one side of the canal to the other. So that's an example of how I try to look at, or the way in which I see the different environments that I'm in. I try to travel to locations that are a little bit outside of the normal, or could be part of an excursion or an event in my life that are important to me. And that particular one just captures a person walking simply across mid-step from one side to the other. One of my influences early on was Cartier-Bresson in terms of capturing the moment and representing that to the viewer as a really sort of struck, frozen moment in time. So a lot of my images are definitely, to my approach to photography, is always being on the lookout for some thing happening that's of interest, or that could be of interest to someone when displayed in a really sort of creative or constructionist view. And those are some of the influences that I have. Always be on the lookout for photographs that can be taken, and having the ability to take those. So taking your camera with you, or carrying your phone with you to take those photographs. Capturing the moment means that you're ready and able to see that moment, that landscape, the combination of people within the landscape causing that action or that story to be told. That would be one of them. The other one is to look to combine what interests you in terms of your life and your passions, your photography, and combine that with what you're actually taking photos of. So I combine a lot of my photos with my love of traveling and becoming incorporated within different cultures, living in different countries, meeting different people, and traveling to landscapes that look foreign, yet while you're in the moment you can take an image that everybody can relate to and everyone can kind of get an understanding of what my approach or what my sort of story is behind that particular capture. One of the key things that I suggest in terms of practice is very much becoming part of that cultural component of where you're taking the photograph or what that environment is that you're shooting within. If you're a portrait photographer, getting involved with the people and who they are within their lives. If you're an architectural photographer, get involved with architects and what that means to an architect or that means to the environment of creating those architectural pieces within an environment. So really getting involved in the lifestyle and the community of those different elements that you're using to create your photography. Part of photography being on display to other people, a part of your own photography needs to be what other people think of your photographs and how you develop your own skills and how they're represented to other people. But to be a great photographer in what you do, continuing that passion, making sure that you're constantly thinking about photographs. There's the number of times that I'm without a camera and I see photographs that I could possibly take if I had a camera or that would look a certain way, and keeping that mentality just during your daily life without going through the practice of photographing everything that you see. That greatly enhances your ability to look at things down the camera with a view from your own life. And that provides that story or that sort of component of the photograph that people enjoy and get captivated by. I guess looking at where I am now and how much I shoot now compared to what I shot learning photography, going through my studies and my own private practice early on, the amount of photography that I did was substantial. It's a full-time job almost to become practiced to a point where someone asks you to take a particular photograph and it's not even a thought anymore for me to pick up a camera and necessarily take the photo. Those are the tools that I've sort of learned and practiced at and now have really easy access to and can just reproduce what I'm seeing very quickly within the camera. But yeah, definitely practice is a big part of that. It's very difficult to pick a favorite between my images because I don't see them as individual images. I see them as a set of my life experiences and places within my own time and travels through the different parts of the world and in my own home country. Mostly what I do is I see images that remind me of a specific occasion or bring back memories and focus for why I was there or what I was doing at the time. One of my key sort of photographic subjects was a property out in Australia that I used to visit, and there's one of the particular images, it looks like a coffin or a cemetery sort of component where there's a cement watering vessel for cattle and sheep to come up, and there's a bright sun, barren, deserted area, and that for me shows a lot of connection between my roots back in Australia and my travels sort of out to properties within Australia and those sorts of things. I wouldn't be able to single out a single influences. In fact, I'd probably point out that I had so many influences that a lot of my photography, I think, is very much constructed on how I see photography and how it's been influenced by all of the connections that I've had to the industry. I worked with a photographic awards system, the National Photography Awards in Australia called the Australian Professional Photography Awards, and during that time I came in contact with thousands upon thousands of commercial, professional, award-winning images, and just that really diverse look at across the field, different images taken in different environments like portrait to landscape. I kind of break down that it doesn't matter whether it's a portrait or a landscape, there's those different objects, those really base components that you put together in a design field that lead to a really constructionist approach to my style of imagery.